I had sort of determined that, I wouldn't make much more content and directly speak or address really anyone. And I had a conversation with a friend that said to me, you know, your voice is being used to make trillions of dollars. And yet the vibration and the frequency is better spent among us. We need it. I need that. And it struck me. It struck me as true and as correct. And so while I had previously come to the conclusion I was wasting my words, there's no reason for me to address or speak through anything, I have, I learned too, and that struck me. So there are those things that need to be spoken. The frequency needs to be injected. There is gifts that I was given that I have to give, right? I have to. That's first and foremost, right? So I come back. And I recognize when I say that there's a frequency that needs to be given, that this is what has controlled the world, right? Once upon a time, when you look in China, they were dressing like Elvis Presley. And then as time went on, they began dressing like Little Richard and later like Michael Jackson. What happens is, and how this world has formed to the place where it has, is based on our frequency, based on our voice, based on our tones, based on us. And it controlled the tempo of every people everywhere in the world. It set a baseline as it relates to how people are, what love is, how interactions are supposed to be, what compassion is, what humanity is. To be completely honest, again, you can look back throughout history and you will find that this frequency was delivered directly by us. We controlled the norms across every stride and discipline. And so it was our frequency that drove them in India, that drove them in Russia, that drove them all over the planet Earth. And this has been true since the beginning of time. And what happened was they realized this frequency, right? They realized the power of this frequency, the Gil Scott Herons, the various griots that we've had over time, and they monetized that frequency. And as soon as they did that, that frequency became co-opted and it was used to benefit them and allow them control over the morality in Russia, the understanding of love in Russia, the understanding of humanity, compassion, empathy, the understanding of those things. Whereas one time they came from directly our frequency. They monetized our frequency. We sell that to them, and now they use that frequency to create a death ray across the entire planet Earth. Okay? And this is what's happening. Right. This is what you're seeing. Every commercial that you see on TV, they're using your frequencies. They've stolen your voice. They've stolen your being. They've stolen your. They bought it from you. Well, let's be honest. They bought it from you, and you sold it, and now it is used to control absolutely every people on the planet Earth. Okay? And they don't. Yeah. So when I say that I needed to drop the frequency, it's because it is exactly that is our voice. The fact that they own it, they control it, and they're modifying the understanding of all of those different things that I spoke to, humanity, right? Empathy, compassion, like this. We still have a voice. We still have an innate frequency. All they did was steal components of what they could from us, but it still belongs to us. It's still in you. You still have it, right? And so again, it was a mistake for me to say, okay, I'm going to withhold that and I'm not going to do this any longer. That was a mistake because it isn't mine. It's yours. So I had to. And so the only reason that I wanted to do this quick, as quickly as I possibly can, is because I wanted to speak to last night I did a radio show on cooperative economics. And the sister that invited me, she didn't have no idea. The biggest mistake was saying, all right, the format's yours. You do what you're gonna do. You say what you're gonna say. Don't say that to me because you have no idea where I'm about to go with it. And so it was not necessarily heard as it really should have been. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to reiterate, I'm going to paraphrase, I'm going to kind of walk through what it was that I'd said last night surrounding cooperative economics. We are in the season of Kwanzaa. And so that being said, it was relevant. And yesterday was Ujamaa-Cooperative Economics. So it was relevant that this conversation be had. And again, I don't know that anybody that was listening expected it to go where it went, but I had to. So what I'm not going to do is I'm not going to tell you my belief. I'm not going to share my ideology. I'm not going to share my philosophy. I'm not going to share my opinion on who this one was or that one was, or tell you should practice this or we should be practicing that. That's not what I am doing. What I am going to do is I'm going to look at the principles associated with this practice that we call Kwanzaa, and I want to lend some definition, some shape, and some form to them a little bit, right? And some verity to them, okay? So Umoja, right? Unity. Kuchijakulia, self-determination. Ujima, collective work. Ujamaa, cooperative economics. Nia, for purpose. And Kuumba, for creativity and self-expression. Okay? The practice of Kwanzaa doesn't exist anywhere else in the world. It's not a practice that is common to Africa at all. It was developed right here in America in 1966 by Maulana Karenga, right? The language that it used is 3,000 years old, right? Swahili is 3,000 years old. It's a Bantu language. It was adapted over time and modified by Arabs in different groups, but the language itself is 3,000 years old, in contrast to the English language, which is 500. Okay. Now, Matunda wa Kwanzaa means literally first fruits. First fruits. Okay. So these principles are called Ngozi Saba. Now, what the first example, the first iteration, the first practice of the Ngozi Saba goes back to before there was even language. There was not even language or words, and the principles persisted. The principles came into being by way of necessity, based on need, right? The very first formation of a community predates words. It predates words. The first humans that came into being, if they didn't know how to provide for themselves water, food, clothing, shelter, and security, they died. That was the end of their story. They came up, they popped up. Hey, I'm from Detroit. Bam, you're dead. As soon as it's 3 days, you don't have water, you're dead, right? So they died, and more humans were born, and they couldn't do the water, the food, that they couldn't provide their own needs. They died. That's the end of their story. That's the end of the line, right? And so the only way any humans were able to flourish beyond that 3-day span was because someone, right, the father of this family or clan, had learned how to harvest and use water, food, security, and essential needs. Okay? That stabilized the human. that allowed the human to exist over a given period of time with at least a base standard of their needs, okay? So individually, each of these humans that persisted had to have these base abilities in order to do so. And they had to have them of themselves, independent of what that dude over there is doing, right? That dude could be dying. Independent of what that dude is doing over there, I need to have at a base level these things for my family, for me to flourish and propagate over time. The basis of community, therefore, the basis of community was found in the common need. In the common need. How did the common need become relevant? Because, because the father has done these things. He can get water, he can keep his family alive. He can get food, he can keep his family alive. Where it comes to security, see, night fell. Nighttime fell. And suddenly, oh, there's 100 hyenas outside. There's predators out here, right? All of a sudden, I'm on the food chain, right? And suddenly, there was benefit to being sensitive to what that dude over there was doing. Because if we gathered in closer numbers in proximity, then it would make it more difficult for the hyena to be dragging off my children in the night. It would make it less easy for these various predators to come in and attack us. So security, the need for security, is what produced what we today call community. There was a need for humans to depend upon each other. This existed before words and before language. Do you understand what I'm saying? Before words and before language, basic necessity is what caused humans to not only become independent, but also form community. So I wanted to speak to the basis of what it is that we call community, okay? And I wanted to speak to that in the context of the Ngozi Saba, right? And the principles associated with the Ngozi Saba, okay? So understanding that the formation of community predates words, that community, the word that we use regularly today, has its foundation in the absolute beginning of time, the principles that we're talking about. The Umoja, the Kuchijakulia, the Ujima, the Ujamaa, the Nia, the Koumba, all of these things were practiced before words, or else we couldn't be here right now today, right? So this is the foundation of community. Now, 1966, Maulana Karenga develops the practice of Kwanzaa. We thank him for his work. We thank him for his energy. We thank him for his spirit. We thank him for the idea. I'm not going to delve into the man and any of the ways in which this came into being. These are conversations that turn into debates. I'm not here to debate. What I'm here to do is I'm here to make clear how this is implemented today, okay? So 1966, here comes the Ngozi Saba and the practice of Kwanzaa, okay? The issue is that when we speak of these principles, unity, what is missing, right? Unity is a buzzword. Everybody says unity. We need unity, and everybody can agree, right? Anybody that says unity, everybody in the room says, yeah, they're right on. That's a woke person. That's a conscious. Well, unity. We need unity. What does it mean? What does it mean? right? In unity or united in what? Toward what goal? Using what vehicle? And what is the measure of success at the completion of that unity? See, without these elements clearly defined, all it is a buzzword. It means nothing. It offers zero functional plan. Step one, step two, step three, it offers nothing. It is a buzzword that is used to derail and diffuse as well as confuse. So everybody can just say the word unity. We can all just throw these buzzwords around without any shape, without any form, and it gives us no direction, right? So again, it must be run through a mill. You must ask, united in what? Ideology? I believe this, you believe that, and we're going to stand around fighting about it, and then we're going to fracture ourselves into tiny little groups, and we're going to fight about our belief in that little group, and that group gets a little smaller, and then we fight about what I think and what you mean and your perception and the subjective. And we do this and do this and do this. And this is what happened in the 60s. This is what destroyed the Black Power movements, because you had slick mouth pimps that walked around and they sounded real good, but they was out to get. They was out to get drugs and out to get alcohol and out to get booty and out to get a name and out to get money. They were out to get. And so if we got diluted by these slick mouth pimps, and now people just say words and they don't even know what they mean. Right? They just use words because of the reaction in the masses. You've been trained to hear the word unity and say, oh, that brother's, oh, he conscious. We need to listen to him. You know what he talking about. He's a unity, you know. He used that trigger word. That means, oh. And so we're all ready to line up behind a new passer, right? And yet there is no shape, there is no form. And if you build upon a faulty premise, if you build upon a faulty premise, if the key assumptions that you accept as true are the foundation upon which you build your plan, then what you have planned is to fail. It cannot possibly succeed. Not possibly. If it didn't start with a foundation of truth, then everything that happens after it is faulty. It can never work. You understand? It can never possibly succeed. So in order for the principles of the Ngozi Saba to be usable, we need to have clear, understood, common definitions of these words. It is not enough for me to say unity. What does that mean? What is the action items broken out that each and every single man, woman, and child, I don't care what color they are, if they are in Russia, if they are in Ukraine, if they are in China, if they are in Japan, if they are Aleutian, it doesn't matter. What can we say consistently is true relative to each and every single one of those people? What does unity mean? What is the goal? What is the vehicle? How do you get there and how do you measure success once you've arrived? So without a definition, the buzzword. Without a definition, without a clear definition that is unambiguous and not subjective, then the principles associated with the Ngozi Saba are useless. You can't use them. There is no common meaning. What unity means to you, it doesn't mean to me. What unity means to them, it doesn't mean to them. The goals of self-determination is individual. There's no way that we could ever possibly come together and do a damn thing if we can't even agree on what my self-determination means and where mine stops and yours begins. We can never grow. This is no basis, right? Ujamaa, collective work towards what goal? Toward what goal? Without clear definition, then absolutely everything else will be faulty. Ujamaa-Cooperative Economics. What is economics? So this is the crux of what it was that I've come to say. When we speak cooperative economics, I am not a stranger to the idea and the model. You know me. You've seen the work that we've done in the Ledge Group. You saw we opened a hospital without loans and debts, without government assistance. You've seen water filtration facilities built all over the world. You've seen an example of cooperative economics as is said and used in our contemporary time. You've seen that I have an understanding of what that is, but I have to step back and I have to ask, what is economics, right? What is economics? And what we most generally will do is come to the belief that economics necessarily means currency. It means money, right? But I'm going to go back again. I'm going to go back again to the formation of community, to the impetus behind the ability to control one's essential needs. I'm going to go back before there was money printed with slave owners' faces on them. Okay. What was cooperative economics then? Before there was words, before there was money. What was cooperative economics then? At the inception of these principles, cooperative economics was recognizing that when the sun goes down, hundreds of hyenas are going to be outside, and in a collected form, we are more safe, each and every single one of us. That was cooperative economics. It was cooperatively controlling our essential need, security being very primary. Security being very primary. It was a driver. It was a motivator. It was the reason why unity happened, right? It was a collective need that each of us share. We are better off together than we are separated. And that is what drove it. But today, if you say cooperative economics, each and every one of us think dollars. Well, guess who wins? See, if I open up a business and I make $1 billion or I lose $1 billion, white supremacy still won, huh? Regardless as to whether I succeed or fail in my goals, white supremacy must have still won. Since they print the currency, there's no way that I could win without them. I must be augmenting their system and keeping it strong in order for my goals and dreams to come true. That is the problem. It is a dysfunctional relationship. And so when we say cooperative economics and we are focused in a hyper-fixated mode on dollars only, they win. So when you say unity, they win. When you say Kuchijakulia, they win. When you say Ujima, they win. They are the primary benefiters of each of them because we do not have clear definition outside of them. And so when we build these principles or we speak to these principles without definition, without shape or form, we are necessarily serving the system that we're trying to escape from. Do you see? Does this make sense? I don't want to just be talking. Definitely, if there's questions, I don't know if I can see them. I'm going to try on Facebook. If there are questions, you may feel free to ask them and I will attempt to answer them. Okay. So, oh, 1 second. Let me turn this down. Okay. All right, I can see. So, with this being said, without a definition that doesn't by default misdirect and serve somebody else, we can never, ever succeed. If you load a bow into your, if you load a quiver into your bow and you don't have a target, you can never hit the target, right? So building upon a faulty premise must necessarily, the recipe is very clear. If you build on a lie, you didn't make a cake, you made a mess. You understand? You made a mess. So what we have to do is we have to have clearer definitions for every single word. Don't let somebody say to you unity and it be a buzzword without shape or without form. What unity? What are we uniting in? Is it your religion? Is it your belief? Is it how you think things should be? Is it your perspective? What is it? Because when we step back and we look at what community was at the beginning of time without words, we find that there was a common interest in those things that were required to keep us alive. So now they've introduced currency, they've introduced money, they've put that in our face. And if somebody says cooperative economics, the only thing they can talk about is money. But what will every single penny, nickel, dime, quarter, dollar, $10 bill, $5 bill, $20 bill, what will every single dollar that you ever acquire get used for? It will be used and exchanged for food, clothing, shelter, water, security. Same things that those humans had to deal with at the beginning of time. The exact same things that humans needed at the beginning of time. And somebody has fooled you into believing that you need the dollar in order to provide them, in order to provide these things that I just spoke to. It would take you less than a week. It would take you less than 2 weeks, each and every single man, woman, and child. It would take you less than 2 weeks to learn how to find and filter your own water and to make it clean so that your family could survive. It would take less than 2 weeks for you to learn how to grow and care for your own food and forage and find those things that you could eat naturally occurring all around your house. It would take you less than 2 weeks to learn how to build watertight shelter that you might be protected from the elements. It would take you less than 2 weeks, given every resource that you have, to accomplish what they had to do at the beginning of time without words. They had to do it at the beginning of time, and they did it without words. And now somebody has fooled you into believing something was more relevant. We walk past it like it was a penny on the ground and it doesn't make any difference. So I sound crazy among billionaires that are telling you that you need to have a millionaire mindset. You need to pop bottles. I need to have cars. I need to show things. I need to have things. I need massa is what that is saying. I'm taking this intermediary and I'm saying it is more important than are the base functions that keep me alive. I'm trusting that this one is supreme and he will always be there to keep me alive. That's what that says. Well, I'm telling you, when we talk about cooperative economics, I'm not talking about money. I'm not talking about printed pieces of paper that have pictures of slave owners on it. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the fact that your baby needs water today, and so does mine. I'm talking about the fact that you need food today, and so do I. I'm talking about the fact that you need shelter today, and so do I. I'm talking about the fact that you need security today, and so do I. Who was responsible for providing those things for you? And as long as you can't define who is responsible for providing those things for you, then whoever is providing them is your master. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Whoever is providing them is necessarily your master, for if they do not provide them, then you die. How can we be reduced to a condition lower than the first humans on the planet Earth? How? How does that even happen? I'm telling you, the word community, it doesn't exist today. See, if you have no share and gain no benefit associated with being in a community, then that is not your community. That is a prison. That is a prison. You do not control or benefit from the food, clothing, shelter, water, healthcare, security, sanitation, education, or utilities within that community. The only thing that you own is a set of keys. That is not your community. That is a prison. Do you hear me? Your children are in a prison. Do you hear me? You must have direct benefit associated with the existence of that community, or it is not your community. Again, leaping forward to the changing definitions of words and terms into 2023, eliminate the inexorable truth to those words, because if we go back to the formation or the prerequisites that caused community to come into being at the first, if we go past the very base understanding, then we're just talking. We're not saying anything. We have no direction, and there is no plan. So the youth are looking at you as the elder, saying, "Well, what are you talking about? You ain't saying nothing. Unity, yeah, that's what they said in the '60s, man. Where that? Where that? I can't eat unity, huh? All that you talking, you sound stupid. You know what I'm saying? You sound stupid talking about unity, coochie jaculia. Towards what? What if what you say is true? If cooperative economics is true, man, then let me go sell these bricks and make this money, huh? Right? If all that shit you saying as elders is true, why don't I just skip to the chase? Why don't I not do all that bullshit that you telling me to do? Go sell some drugs, go do a stick up, go pimp some women, make some money, and then and pop bottles. Why everything that you're saying is stupid, right? Yeah, they're right. Because it has no direct connection. It has no definition. It has no step 1, step 2, step 3. They're right. They're right. And we just walk along like we don't have the frequency within, as if we don't know the answers to these questions, as if we can't see the fact that a lack of definition necessarily means that we take a bow and we just firing wherever, right? We don't have an attack vector. Well, I'm here to offer, without my philosophy, without my ideology, absent my perception of a thing, all we just did was speak to humanity, how humans evolved, right? How they got to the place where they were able to survive for more than 3 days, and how community was formed. And so in that description, we didn't find any conversation about money. So when we speak cooperative economics at a very base level, it has nothing to do with money. It has to do with the condition of a human being and the ability for them to survive in this moment and maintain a standard of survival over time. That is what brought community into being. That is how you define needs. Now you have a liar that has misdirected you with dollars. And so you think that this is necessary in order to have that. No, these are necessary. These are necessary. Because if you took the 2 weeks necessary to learn how to filter water, I'm talking straight at you. If you took the 2 weeks necessary to learn how to find and filter and test water, if you right now, man, this is relevant. This is relevant because you're going into these Greco Neanderthals new year into 2024, right? If each and every single one of us, every man, woman, and child, if each and every one of us right now in 2024 determined that every single day in this upcoming year, we will use our hands. I will build something. And the something that I build will first be surrounding water and how to filter it. The second will be food, how to find it, grow it, preserve it. The third will be shelter, how to make it airtight, watertight, and defensible. The fourth is going to be healthcare, how to not die if I step on a rusty nail. If we dedicated every day, an hour a day into these things next year, we would be free. I'm telling you, if every man, woman, and child determined to do that, we would be free. And you know what? That it transcends so many different areas, because if your man goes, last night there was a brother on the call with my dear sister, and they moved to Athens, Georgia, and a tree fell on their truck, and he couldn't move around, he couldn't go do nothing, and he was hurt and disgusted, and decided one day, well, I'm going to take the wood off of my truck and I'm going to make tables. and he made tables. And he took every single piece of wood that was out there and he made tables. And now his entire patio is custom made tables that he put together. And you want me to know what that's called? That's called pride. Because when you go to that man's house for dinner, he ain't gonna let you eat at the kitchen table in the house. He ain't gonna do that because he didn't made these tables. What's gonna happen is you're gonna bring your ass out to the patio and y'all gonna eat on them tables that he made. And guess what? He may not even tell you that he made them tables, but there is a source of pride that that man knows that the majority of men never will. Never will. There is a source of pride that his wife has in him that most women will never know. And it all began with him doing it with his hands. It all began with him doing it. So what we call pride today is nothing of the sort. It's purchased from IKEA, the car dealership, or the realtor. That ain't real pride. You're not proud of the fact that you can make dollars. That's not real pride. You're holding on to it as if it were a safety blanket, and that's what you're using, and you're telling everybody that this is pride, but this isn't pride. That's false pride. It's not manhood that you can buy from IKEA and come home and say, what did you bring to my table? That's not real manhood. You can't buy manhood. You can't buy pride. And this is what they have made us believe we can do, and we can't. Do you know where pride is derived? You know what it was. You smelled it before. You felt it before. You know where pride comes from? Pride comes from the first time your mama let you go outside and you went outside and you got a makeshift tool and you went and you tried to build a fort or you tried to build a car. Listen to what I'm saying to you. Innately, you tried to build shelter when no one told you to. There was no supervisor. There was no dollar value you were being paid. Nobody said that you had to do that. And yet innately, you began to build a fort. You began to build transportation. You began to build the essential needs that a human began with at the beginning of time. Do you hear what I'm saying? So when we're seeking an answer, when we're looking for an answer surrounding how to solve what it is that we are suffering from, we're walking over it like it is a penny on the ground and has little value. But it is the foundation of how humans came to turn into communities. It is the foundation of life itself. That is the answer. So I came in speaking about the Nguzo Saba. I came in speaking about the 7 principles, the first fruits, right? Kwanzaa, first fruits. Why does this matter? Because what it really is talking about is what produced community to begin with. Doesn't matter how you co-opt the language and how you twist it and make it mean something else. What is it that produced community when the first community was produced? It was a common need, and the means of solving that common need through unity. We united because the hyenas would eat us if we were divided. This is what brought common unity into being. So what does this mean? What are the action items? The first action item is ignore anybody that's using buzzwords without definition, that cannot, in fact, speak to when I say unity, it means step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, and here's the conclusion. If you hear somebody using words and they have no plan behind their words, they are a distraction. They're stealing your energy. Okay? You must have clear definition, and you've got to ask for clear definition or you will never get it. You will just assume that when this man says unity, it means the same thing that it means to you, and it does not. Okay? So we first discard all of that. We must challenge key assumptions. Well, when you say community, what does that look like? What does that mean? Is it predicated upon slave masters' paper, or is it something deeper than that? Right? Does it speak to me innately? Is it what, when I was born and the first time I was allowed to go outside, is that what came out of me? Build shelter, build vehicle, find a place to eat. We would eat anything. It was so scary. It was so scary as children. But but our focus was very clear. It was the same focus that occurred a million years ago and created community in the beginning. And yet everything that we learned from a liar has twisted us and caused us to not be able to see this, not be able to understand or articulate this. This is why I felt I needed to kind of share this quickly, because it hit on points that must truly be understood before we can ever go forward. And so that I'm going to leave you with those last steps. What can we do? What can each and every one of us do in a non-subjective, non-ambiguous, doesn't matter who you are, what you believe, what you call yourself, it doesn't matter. It is true for you and it is true for me. What is the truest element that we can say relative to unity, relative to self-determination, relative to all of those principles, relative to community, relative to changing our condition? What can we do? Your hands. You don't, there is no, if you take breath, if you have lungs, if you have a heart, if you have eyes, I don't care what gender, I don't care what age, it begins here. Here is where pride comes from. Here is where the answers come from. Here is where we start. Start tomorrow. Learn to filter water. At the end of the day, you will be better for it. You will drink cleaner, more nutritious water, and you will have that under your belt. Then the next day, learn to grow food in whatever space you are. Get good with it, huh? Get creative with it. Learn to do it with these. Learn to build shelter. Make mistakes while you have a safe space to do it. Build a shelter. Make it watertight. Learn to secure it. These are the elements of freedom. And if every man, woman, and child endeavor to do that right now, not send Peter Popoff $10 and I'm going to tell you how to do it. Say, join my seminar and that the fuck out of here. That's not the answer. That's self-aggrandizement. That is the same old, same old. I'm telling you, it's your hands. And if each and every one of us do exactly what I'm saying right now, next year at this time, you'll be free. Everything will have changed. You will be free. We will be free. The entire dynamic will crumble and reset. It's your frequency that has controlled everything. Now I'm asking you to control your frequency and put your hands in the dirt. You hear me? That's the answer. There's your step one. There's your step two. There is your step three. There is your step four. You have heard it. You are now responsible. You are accountable for having heard it. That is the unambiguous answer for the man in Russia, for the man in Ukraine, for the man in Gaza, for the man in Israel, for the man in India, for the man in China, for the man all over the earth. That is the singular answer. I leave you with that, right? I just wanted to drop this. I wanted to make sure that it was heard. It was important in the radio show. As I touched on it, I felt it, and I needed to build on that and make sure that people could hear that, right? Again, yes, I do real good in what I do, right? I make trillions of dollars for these folks, right? And they're real happy with that. But in some ways, this is cheating my own, because the true frequency, the true value of my voice is not compensated in dollars. It is compensated in change, right? It's compensated in change in us and our condition. So I had to drop this real quick frequency drop. My hope is that my arrow, I aimed it. I didn't just randomly shoot. I aimed my arrow. My hope is that I have hit my target. All right. Peace be upon you.